All right. I'm Molly. I am the content writer for Zintex Remodeling. I'm talking to Logan today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Logan. I am from Oklahoma City, and I am a master design consultant with Zintex. I've been doing this for 2.5 years, and apparently Molly's got some questions for me.
I do. Yes. Today I want to talk about the problems that we tend to find behind shower walls when we go in to renovate bathrooms.
Mm,
Sometimes the things that homeowners know they're looking to fix, but also the things that they don't know are there. So I wanted to start
100%.
with water damage. That's something that we talk about a lot. How often are you actually seeing water damage behind shower walls, and what's it doing to the home?
To answer the second question first, bad stuff. Water is the most damaging thing that can occur in your house besides like a tornado. So it is definitely a bad thing to find any moisture behind a shower wall, but to find a lot is a big problem. So if I had to estimate, and obviously it depends month to month, but probably 60 to 80% of our jobs have some level of moisture damage back there. And I'm classifying damage as us having to do any amount of repairs,
Mhm.
right? So that could be a simple bleach scrub on a small amount of mold or mildew, and it could be replacing 16 studs, subflooring, and everything. So I would say it's probably 40 to 50% we're replacing at least one stud, which I would classify as significant. So it's extremely common. And it's definitely something you got to be prepared for. Whether we're the contractor or not, whoever's going to be doing that needs to be prepared to take care of that moisture damage. And they really shouldn't be charging a homeowner extra for that. If you're a bathroom expert, you should know that's coming at you. And to speak to the damage of what it does is once the moisture gets back there, it starts to accumulate both mold and rot. So mold and mildew are just naturally floating through the air, and they will set up shop anywhere that is warm, wet, and has a place for them to not be disturbed. So in a shower, you're always going to have warm and wet.
Mhm.
But if you let it set back there behind the walls, typically in a tile scenario, modern tile, it's going to be like 3 to 7 years in. You're going to have that grout fail. Old is going to accumulate in the moisture that gets back there, and it's going to create a colony behind the tile and then expand out. That's when you start to see it in the lines. Unfortunately, by the time it's already in the grout lines, it's set in. There's not much you can do beyond just scrub the heck out of it with bleach and then do that every 2 weeks for the end of time. And then rot is going to be where the actual organic material that most American homes are made out of, whether that be the sheetrock, the wood, whatever material is back there, is going to set. And water is extremely corrosive over time. It's going to break that down, rip it apart, and leave it almost like termites do, somewhat hollow from a functional perspective. And then you have things start to get worse from there. Water's like a sponge; it starts on one side and just travels through it, and then finds the next thing to travel through.
I imagine that's one of the reasons why trying to retrofit an existing shower with something weight bearing like a grab bar isn't a great idea if things are essentially hollowed out back there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would never recommend a retrofitting of any grab bar,
Yeah.
not just because obviously, hey, we like when we replace stuff. That's our business, right? But we don't recommend it for a more significant reason, which is that you can't reinforce them.
Right.
And a standard stud is going to have a maximum weight capacity of 2 to 250 pounds. I
Mhm.
don't care what you weigh, you drop all your weight on that grab bar, you're generating a lot of force.
Right.
And if you have that thing you're leaning on, then it comes off the wall. Now you're getting fall damage, including hitting your head in the wall, and then you fall down and it gets really bad. So absolutely though, when it's damaged, I mean, you're basically just putting it into mush,
Right.
and
Not great.
nothing's great about that.
Do you tend to see certain problems more in older properties versus like a new build? Does one or the other have a standout issue that you guys are going in and fixing?
That's a really good question. I would say this is so funny. Older's better. Like
Mhm.
old. Like when
Yeah.
we're talking like pre 60s,
Mhm.
a lot of that tile is dated, maybe it's chipped, but it's actually in pretty good shape. And there's a lot less mold and moisture back there because back in the pre 50s, when they were doing what's called mud lath tile,
Mm.
they were floating, which means to basically install a cement layer in layers up the wall. It ends up being almost an inch thick, and it's designed to dry out over time. There's also a lime component to that kind of like what you hear about Roman concrete healing itself.
Mhm.
That's what happens in that. But that isn't cost effective for building homes. So going into the 60s, America's growing, the population's growing, the need for homes is growing, and the capital market kind of takes over and they start building quickly. And so
Right.
that's when you see moving away from mudlath and into what we would see as modern tile that is some waterproofing layers, some grout, call it good, keep it rolling, get out of the builder warranty.
Mm.
And I would say probably the worst I'm in on a monthly basis is a home built in the last 15, the last 5 years. The COVID houses are horrific.
Yeah.
We carry moisture meters around here. I actually got it in the cart. This moisture meter. You want to see this thing make this sound? Go into a home built 6 months ago with tile. It's every time. It's gonna have it. They are just slapping these things together. And that's in like nice builders. I'm not talking like your redneck builder. I'm not gonna say their names, but the names that build in every city in America.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. You've mentioned tile and grout, which I know tend to be the big heavy hitters when it comes to mold growth. Are there other popular shower wall materials that also generate a lot of problems?
Yeah, well, fiberglass is obviously the other, traditional. There's a few other versions, but tile and fiberglass have always, since the 80s, have really been what people do. Fiberglass, 80s and 90s fiberglass, it loses its luster. It's hard to clean, but mold and mildew is not so much concern. Now, since 2004, fiberglass, kind of just like the tile, has just been nosediving in quality almost every year, getting worse. It's now paper thin and backed up by a corrugated board rather than a thick layer of fiberglass. And it's not that fiberglass itself is a bad thing. Almost every boat you see rednecks are partying on the weekends, that's fiberglass, but it's like a half-inch thick, quarter-inch thick. This stuff is now like a 32nd thick,
Mm.
and it doesn't have the ability to flex without cracking. So you see a lot of cracking, you see a lot of leaks from that. You have people compressing the shower bases is another issue. So you start
Yeah.
to squish and squeak. And, you're just waiting for that thing to pop and
Right.
break, and then you're replacing anyway. So it squishes and squeaks, and then it's going to basically pop like a balloon and create those issues. So that would be it. And then the other stuff that we're starting to see as companies like us grow and build the identity of a solid wall surface as really the best modern solution, and I tell people it's really similar to what happened to solar during COVID when there were some good solar companies and then everybody became a solar company and then solar fell apart.
Yeah.
Not that our industry is falling apart, but we're starting to see knockoffs. We're starting to see locals become bath experts installing the cheap, South Asia, Southeast Asia, China specials. They're
Mm.
pumped full of chemicals. They're a lot cheaper made.
Mm.
They don't have any warranties that they should on them, at least nothing that's worth anything.
Yeah.
So that's another issue. And then, frankly, even a quality wall like what we do, if you don't install it right, because they're flexible, they'll warp apart within just 3 years. So it's definitely a thing of get the right product. Of course, can't do anything if you don't have that, but you also have to have the right installer.
That's actually one of my other questions was how often are you repairing showers that aren't that old but were poorly installed to begin with?
So I'm moving my phone back to the AC because we're going to see if that helps. But I would say so. I did 115 completed projects in 2025. I
Wow.
bet 20 were done in the last 3 years.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
so I'm not going to say it's, the most common thing, but I'd say over 10% is pretty high,
Yeah.
especially if you're looking at the most, according to the cost versus value report, a shower remodel over the last 3 years ranges, depending on where you are, between $12,000 and $16,000. It's a lot of money to spend and then have to pay another
You do
company
it.
to replace it the right way. Yeah, it's
Right.
horrible.
Right.
And we always feel horrible when we have to do it, but it's unfortunate. And so it's very common. No, it's too
Yeah.
common,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah. That's, I know something we say often is the most expensive shower remodel is the one you have to do twice. Um,
100%.
yeah. Yeah. And then are there any other problems that we haven't really covered that you see behind those shower walls?
I'm going to jump back on installation on that. These walls have to be installed very specifically. Oftentimes, you're going to see cheap contractors or the local guys who got their hands on a solid wall. These walls are flexible or they wouldn't be able to get in your house. All
Mm.
right. We can't bring in these, plywood slabs that don't get through hallways. And so they have a flex to them. And if you install them using what we call the dot method, where you just dot, 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 stick, call it good. You're going to end up having air trapped back there. When air is trapped and heated from the steam of your shower, it's expanding and contracting every time. Typically 700 to 1,000 showers in, which, you know, can happen in a year or
Yeah.
it can happen in 3 years, is going to start to notice some delaminating, warping, bowing, and bending. Think like motel special kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yep.
You'll start to notice kind of, I always do the want want sound. Uh, or a lot of times you'll see it around ceilings. It'll start to kind of do like this from the ceiling.
Mhm.
And we just did one up in Wichita from another design consultant. One of the materials that we are familiar with had been installed 5 years ago and was already pretty much useless.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's the biggest thing. The right way to do it. It's not rocket science. It's an old school method. It's an airlock system where you put it on in a snake. You press it in specifically. It allows the air pushed out. We get an average of 98% adhesive coverage. There's no air trap back there, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing to pull away. I was actually just talking to our field manager. His name's John in Oklahoma City. He had to replace one after somebody had put in custom glass, and that company had just screwed it up and scratched the walls. And so the customer was having us back to replace that wall. It
Mhm.
took him 4 hours to remove one 30-inch wall.
Whoa.
These don't come down if they're installed the right way, right? So that's the one thing I always tell folks. Don't worry about bothering your installer. Talk to him as much as you want, but when it's time to do adhesive, go like take a little peek ski in there, make sure he's doing it the right way.
Love it. I love it.